This is how to sew up a basic beanie chunky. It is 61 stitches, 7.5mm needles, worked with two threads of DK. It's unbranded yarn, so I don't know what it consists of. Scrap yarn. I have, when I worked off the end, I have 11 stitches there, so I worked around and round to make sure it's nice and secure. It's in a previous video, and now we're going to be working down. When I get to this part here, I need to make sure those two are aligned. But over the crown, it's quite tricky to see exactly where the alignment is. So I will just more or less guess the two different sides. I'm going to be weaving back and forth. I'm not picking up the very edge loop. I'm picking the one next to it. And I'm coming to this side. But I don't want to get all these knots from the decrease, so I'll just skip over those. As I said, working down the crown, it's not easy to see where the rows are, so I'm just guessing. And then I'll sort it out when I get to the stitch markers. Coming down to the stitch markers. So I'm going to be sewing up not with this last loop here on the edge. I'm working with the loop that's on the inner side of the work. This is a 1 stitch knit, presents with 2 loops, as you can see. I'm using the one that's on the inner edge of the work. It's lying next to all these purl stitches. On the other side, I don't use the edge loop. I use the loop that's next to it. So if you count how many are here, there'll be 5. And the 6th one is lying on the edge. I don't use that one. I'll be using this 5th one here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that'll make an invisible seam. Just check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. Now when I come down to here, let's make sure that they're aligned. Looks like I'm just 1 row off. This one here. Yeah, 1 row off. So what I do is when I come through, I go through the row with the green and I go back into that one. So now my 2 green stitch markers are right next to each other. And I know that as I work down, my rows will be aligned. Just picking up the loops as they present. Every now and then check, do a little count. Sometimes it's quite easy to slip over and you'll be working in the 4th loop instead of the 5th. Don't pull it tight. You want it to be relaxed, not under tension. So otherwise it's going to deform this little edge you're creating, or this little pseudo stitch. Because when you look at it, it will be as if counting, 4th, 5th one there. When you look at it, it looks like a pseudo stitch. It looks like a stitch, like you've knitted it, but it's actually a pseudo stitch. And that is your invisible seam. And that is why you want to make sure when you go down that you are counting correctly. It's a bit tricky to see with this mottled color. So I'm hoping that if you can't see it clearly, my voice will be guiding you. Running out of yarn, but I do have the tail from the other end. Maybe I should have taken 1 arm instead of 3/4 arm. a little knotty thing here. Let's pick him up. Should I ignore him? Not too sure what I did there. I think I'm going to incorporate him somehow. I'll find out soon enough if he should have been added in or not. Okay, let's move from the other side now. And this is where the sharp one comes in, because I want to attach the two sides very firmly. There's a little knot there. Be working into that knot. Once you've found the knot, which is the bottom of your row, depending on how you cast on, see, it doesn't want to go through. Let's take one yarn. I don't have to use two because I just want to attach them. So let me take one yarn. Depending on how you cast on, you might have a slightly different lower edge. Just make sure that you are actually working on the lower edge. Sometimes it's quite easy to actually mistake it and be working on this stitch here or higher up. And I go back and forth across the two sides because I don't want that to come undone with wash and wear. And that's why this sharp pointed needle is excellent for this job. It breaks into the fibers and really anchors this. You can see it's not going to come undone. Once I've made it nice and secure, I can remove that one and I'll go back to the other. The other one is a little bit shorter. Trim it off. And now I'll start weaving up. I'll do my count. One. The first stitch is always a bit tricky. I just try and more or less find it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like it's this one over here. Okay, let's pull him through. Go to the other side. If my stitches were a bit loose and a bit messy, then I'll work it back and forth a few times. 1, 2, 3, 4. See, it's tricky. Got to count. There's the fifth one. Won't be shy. I'll go back. As I said, this is the brim or the edge. And if the people are tugging on it or something, it can come loose if it's not worked away properly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm very happy with that. Now I'll work up. And when I get closer, sometimes I can discover that I'm out by a row, sometimes even 2. So then I need to adjust. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's tricky for me working in this direction, going this way. I prefer to work down. If it's a bonnet and there's a big fold up, then I try and work this up as high as possible, so when I work the tails away, they'll be right on the inside of the work and not actually on the cuff of the bonnet. So here I'm getting here, let me just count. I've got 1, 2 loops, 1, and that one's already worked. So I'm actually out by 1 row. That's fine. I'll go into this one. See how I've worked there? I'm going to overlap. Where it is, I go into that one, just coming back, and I'll go up 1 more. So there's an overlap between the 2 tails. Then I feed the yarn to the back, pull it through, and I'll do the same with the other one. So other one's much shorter. So as this is destined for a child, for a charity, and the child will be folding the cuff over, I'm going to work these tails upwards. So when I cut them, the threads will be up there, because the little child might be folding it over, and I don't want any of the tails sticking out where I've cut them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see from that side. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see it creates 4 here, 3 there. So when you fold over, there is actually 4. When you look at it from the right side, there's 3. I'm going to work it away with the sharp pointed needle. I can either work away 2 strands at a time, or I can work away 1 strand at a time, depending on how I feel. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So let me work 1 strand away at a time. I have more than enough of these little guys, because I'm going to be working up, all the way up. And I won't cut them until I've done all of them, so that I can see. Sometimes I'm working, and especially if I have lots of them and I can't see where I've just worked in, short-term memory loss. What is doing? Is it doing a little knot there? Yeah. There we go. Oops. I want to bring it through, but I don't want to distort my work. I see I've just... These sharp pointed needles are a devil. Look, it's nicked it, you see. So I'm going to have to take that in, work it around a little bit, just to bring it back in. Unravel the last bit, go all the way up. Don't be shy to really work your tails away well. Sometimes I work down again, but because this is a chunky with two threads, I'm very happy to do it this way. So I said, just work that tail as far as possible. So because I worked on this one here, I'm going to go to the next one across. There he is. Unravel a little bit and run all the way up as far as that tail will go. So I said I should have cut an arm's length rather than 3/4. It is what it is. Okay, I'm happy with that. And these ones are shorter, so they can't go as far. I'm going to start off by immediately unraveling. And I'm going to work across, but I need to remember there's going to be a certain amount of stretch. So I'm kind of going a little bit up and down. So as it stretches, see, as it stretches like that, this weave also stretches. There's no fixed rule on how you work a tail away. Now I can go all the way up. Now because my yarn is so short, my tail to work away, I'm first going to weave the needle, and then I'm going to thread it. Respecting that sharp point, you can catch very easily onto the work. Okay, I'm happy with that. We're nipping it off there with the scissors, pair of scissors. Same with this guy here. Now because I didn't use this first row for a good reason, because I have these short ones, I'll be using the first row. It does make it easier. I'm twisting and weaving that needle as far as it will go. Pulling pulling it down. Yeah, there's nothing left to weave. Cut that one, cut that one. I don't have to cut it right next to it. It'll be pulled into the work now. Cut that one, cut that one. Once you give it a little tug, it'll all but disappear. So this is the inside. That is the outside. You're checking that you haven't left anything, that everything's been worked away. For instance, there's a little stitch marker. You take them out gently. Just make sure that everything's done. Make sure that the brim is nice and big. You don't want that tight on the head. And I've got a little curl up. So this is an African charity. And the little kids I've noticed in the photographs, they quite like to wear their hats on the head like that with this little part here sticking up. They don't necessarily curl over the cuff. So they wear it more like a beanie, but if there's any extra, it tends to stick up. So it's really cute. It's a very simple one, but I'm making some simple colors for the little boys. There we go. The link to the charity is below. It's called Knit&Crochet. It's a project here in South Africa. And they have a website. There's also some YouTube videos. It's called Knit&Crochet, but they're also looking for hats and teddy bears. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching and have a lovely day. Bye.